Anybody grow up doing chores? I thought chores are awesome as long as you're not a kid, right? So we had to do chores when I was a kid, and you know, I think my parents, they just felt like it was free labor, you know. It's just part of it. Now, one of the chores we hated, just despised it, doing the dishes. Ugh. How many of you guys hated doing the dishes? How many of you still hate doing the dishes? Yeah. And I remember begging my dad, Dad, buy a dishwasher. That's why I made 6. But hated doing the dishes. And the thing was, there was always negotiations for doing the dishes. You guys remember? Somebody's got to wash, somebody's got to dry, put them away. So we're negotiating because here's the way that it works. So the worst job was doing the dishes. Washing them because what your families, they're just nasty. They do stuff on their plates like that's just not okay, you know. Like you're washing the plate, you come across gum, just, you know, not okay. Or yeah, you hope it's gum. And so, but if you were drying, then you would like miss some TV. And so it's kind of, but we would always negotiate. So whose turn is it with this? Whose turn is with that? So we negotiated a lot. Matter of fact, if you're a parent, you're already a master negotiator, right? Isn't that true? I mean, your kids come to you and say, hey, Dad, what if I, or Mom, you know, I love you. You're like the best mom in the world. And I just know how lucky I am. It's like, yeah, there's money involved. But see, the deal is, and here's what I'm thinking. Because we are the children of God, you think sometimes we try to negotiate with God? Now see, I'm going to give you some help here probably. Whatever we try to negotiate as far as our relationships and our relationship with God, generally what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep something back that we have control of. Okay, now there's this guy in Matthew chapter 19. He's a rich guy, and he comes to Jesus one day, and he goes, Jesus, what do I got to do to get to heaven? What's it take for eternal life? And Jesus said, well, you got to keep the commandments. He said, which ones? So he names off a bunch of the commandments, and he says, I've already done this. What else do I lack? So basically what this guy is saying, he's like, okay, so how much do I got to give? How far do I got to go? Or in other words, how much can I keep for myself that I'm in control of? Okay? And so he said, okay, I've already done all this kind of stuff. See, what we want to do is we want to keep some back. We want to maintain some control over our life. Because we think sometimes that we are better masters of us than God can be. I mean, of course, we know that's not true. And so when he's negotiating with Jesus on that kind of stuff, he says, okay, Jesus, so what else do I lack? What else do I need? Here's what Jesus said. He goes, go sell everything you have. Give it to the poor and follow me. So Jesus says, I don't want some of the beans. I want them all. All? Are you kidding? Here's the way that this works. If we insist on being master of beans, then the harvest we reap is the same harvest we've always reaped. Or in other words, if you do what you've always done, you'll probably get what you've always got. And here's my Dr. Phil impression. How's it working for you? Okay? And so he wants us to, see, that's what we call surrendering our life to Jesus Christ. Now, here's the cool thing, is what he gives us back in return is way more than we give him. Way more. Remember the story, Jack and the Beanstalk? American literature? You know, so there's this kid, his mom says, hey, you're going to go sell the cow. When you sell the cow, you're going to buy some groceries, bring some groceries home so we can eat. Where he meets this guy in the way, he sells him some magic beans. Everybody say magic beans. His mom, these are magic beans. And so she probably just slaps the poo out of him, sends him to bed without any supper, throws the beans out the window. Of course, we know the story. Overnight, beanstalk grows up into the sky. He climbs the beanstalk, takes the goose that lays the golden eggs, comes down the beanstalk, kills the giant on the way, and they live happily ever after. Good story. Now, what's wrong with the story? Not true. It's fake. It's phony. See, the deal is sometimes we think that the story's going to turn out different sometimes. That's why we hold some back, okay? So it's not the list, and so it's not what we turn over, but God can do so much more with what we give him than with what we hang on to. He's way better at it, okay? Now, The reason I'm talking about this is that life requires effort. Everything in life requires effort. So we've learned this growing up. We learned that if you put forth effort, you make progress. Okay? If you put forth effort, you make progress. Now listen, here's how this goes. So we learn, like, and learning to ride a bike. You ride the bike, so you put forth effort, you ride the bike, and you get someplace. And what we also learned is that sometimes the bigger the challenge, the greater the effort, the lesser the results. Now listen, sometimes the challenge in front of us is so huge, we put forth way more effort, but we get way fewer results. And that's disappointing. Anybody ever been disappointed with a relationship? Ever been disappointed in people? Ever been disappointed in yourself? Ever been disappointed in God? Romans chapter 5, verse 3 through 5 tells us this. It said, tribulation produces perseverance. Perseverance gives you character. Character gives you hope. And with hope, you won't be disappointed. And so the deal is sometimes I think we hope in a better harvest for the stuff that we really haven't given to God. But so sometimes effort doesn't produce the results that we think that it should, right? Now, so we know that life requires effort. Somehow there's some kind of a belief that some stuff in life should be free. How many of you guys like free stuff? Can I give you some really, really good help here? There's no such thing as free. There is no free stuff. Like some of the politicians are promising free college. Dude, it's not free. You say, well, it's free to me. Somebody's got to pay. So here's the deal. No matter where you move the line, the circle always come back around. And people say, well, I don't know if I agree with that or not. It's a biblical principle called reaping and sowing. If you put forth effort, you get results. Now, if you don't put forth any effort, you're probably not going to get results. And so there's no such thing as free. So we have life that is sometimes a lot of work. Sometimes life is hard. You guys know that, right? How many of you guys think life is hard sometimes? How many of you guys think relationships are hard sometimes? Yeesh, you know. How many of you guys think money's hard sometimes? See, we have our personal life, we have our work life, we have our social life, we have our love life, we have our God life, and sometimes that life seems really, really hard. Now, when I bring all this stuff up, when Jesus talked to his culture, he was always really relevant with his culture. He talked about agriculture because there was a lot of farming stuff around. He talked about homes and how people deal with their homes, and he talked about the economy, a lot of kind of stuff. But the most pointed lessons Jesus ever taught took place at the water's edge. Because water changes the whole dynamic. Now see, with a bicycle or a car or something like that, you have a foundation, you have traction, these kind of things. But getting around in water is way harder than getting around anyplace else, right? And so a lot of those pointed lessons about life and family and relationships and faith, a lot of those things, they took place at the water's edge because water is a little less responsive to our needs, right? Now, in Jesus' time, there was only two ways you can get around on water. Either the wind or the oar, okay? Now here's how this works. If the wind was in your favor, hoist the sail, smooth sailing, easy to get around. But what if the wind is against you? What's your option? Got to row, baby. It's going to be work. So why do I bring that up? Listen to me. How many of us realize sometimes the winds are against you? Man, why is this so hard? Hang on, this is deep, the deep spiritual truth. Why is this so hard? Because the wind's blowing the other way? You might not catch that. You want me to repeat it? But see, sometimes life is working against you. So that requires that you put forth the effort for things to change. Are you still with me? Okay, and so this brings me to the book of Mark chapter 6, and I'm just going to read this story with you. Mark chapter 6, it starts at verse 45, okay? And I really want you to get this. So in verse 45, it says, immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to Bethsaida while he dismissed the crowd. He made his disciples plural, so he's got like the dozen guys, and he puts a dozen guys into a boat. So here's what I want you to get. It's not a canoe. For 12 guys to be in a boat, it's got to be a pretty good sized boat, right? And so that's going to take some work. So he puts them in this boat, tells them to go to the other side to Bethsaida while he dismissed the crowd. Verse 46, after leaving them, he went up onto a mountainside to pray. When evening came, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on the land. Verse 48, he saw the disciples straining at the oars. Straining at the oars. So here's where I want to go with this with all of us. Anybody feel like you're straining to get along? Straining to do okay? Straining at relationships? Does anybody feel like it's a lot more work than it really ought to be? I mean, aren't you glad sometimes that life does have easy points every once in a while? But most of the time, honestly, we feel like we're straining at the oars just to kind of get around, okay? So he saw them straining at the oars. Darn, it keeps happening. I guess Matt's off the hook. And because the wind was against them, about the fourth watch of the night, which is about 3 o'clock in the morning, he went out to them, walking on the lake. He was about to pass by them. But when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost and cried out. Now I see the comedy in Scripture. Here's these tough, burly fishermen, these guys. And they're rowing across. And Jesus is walking across the lake. And they go, it's a ghost. I mean, really. Has anybody actually seen a ghost? Yeah, I wouldn't admit it either. Because it's crazy. So they're freaking out because they're afraid. So they think it's a ghost. And then Jesus said, take courage. It is I. Now when he says it is I, that's the same I he uses when he's talking to Moses and he says, I am. So here's basically what he's saying. It's like, you might be in the middle of something that you can't control. You might be trying for all you're worth. You might be struggling, straining at the oars. But here's what I want you to know. God is in the house. God is in the middle of this. God is walking into your circumstance. Now here's the deal. Sometimes I think we are so caught up in the drama of it all, we miss it. Anybody else miss details besides me? I mean, we'll be going along and Loretta will go, did you see that? What? I missed stuff. And so they were so caught up in the drama, so caught up in the fear, so caught up in, oh my gosh, I hope we don't die. They almost missed it. And see, and I think that happens to us sometimes. Man, there's a lot of stuff going on sometimes. Sometimes the strain is all we can think of. But that's why I want you to know, God is in the house. God's got this. And so for all of us who are straining at the oars, anybody straining at life? Come on now, let's hear about it. Anybody think you're working awful hard to make things work? 3 lessons for those of us that are straining at living, okay? 3 lessons. Now when I talk about straining at the oars, here's what I mean. The winds are against you. That's not a surprise, right? Let me kind of help you out. Did you know that there's people that don't like you? No. There's people that don't like me. I'm as surprised as you are. Go figure. Do you know that not everybody always agrees with you? What's with that? Because of course you're right. So here's what I'm saying. Oftentimes the winds are against us. So we're straining at the oars. Now listen, here's what this means. When we're straining at the oars, that means if life is going to be against you, it's your responsibility to push back. Come on now, push back against us. I mean, fight for your family instead of with your family. There's a concept, right? So that's what straining at the oars means. So those of us that are straining at the oars, there's 3 lessons I want us to learn, okay? 3 lessons for those of us that are straining at living, okay? Lesson number 1, okay, is for those of us that are straining at the oars, rowing hard doesn't always mean you're making progress. I'm trying awful hard. I'm working at this. Now, we got smart people here today. We're the smart people. How many of you guys know what happens if you row by yourself, one oar? See, you guys caught right on first service, way over your head, didn't get it. Now, some of the first service, well, you just row both sides. It's a big boat. There's 12 guys in it. So you think, well, you just go to the other side. So I can picture you going, That's a really great concept. See, here's the deal. Just because you're trying hard doesn't mean you're making progress. Sometimes we're just going in circles. Have you ever asked yourself, why does this keep happening? See, we can't do this by ourselves. We can't row. We can't put forth the effort on our own. We need to kind of partner together to make this kind of stuff work, okay? See, I see families in a downhill spiral. Things are crashing down. And I say, why does this keep happening? Because everybody is rowing in a different direction. Come on, man. It's time to get stuff together. It's time to make the family stuff work, okay? Lesson number 2. Rowing hard together sometimes just makes you tired. I talk to people and say, well, we're doing this together, but it's not working. So the reason it makes you tired is because you got to figure out where you're going. Now listen, this is some good stuff. First question you got to ask yourself is, where do we want this to go? You got to figure that out first. Where do we want it to go? Otherwise, you're just kind of just making noise, splashing in the water, just making things. You got to answer that question first. How do I want life to pick up? And so with what I'm doing now, even though we're doing it together, are we doing the right thing? Are we going the right direction? Because if all you're doing is staying busy as a family, you're just going to get tired. And I'll ask families all the time. I say, well, what do you want from your kids? Well, we just want good kids. That's a really good answer, right? But when you define good as, we would just like them to have less than 3 felonies. That doesn't make any sense. So you have to figure, okay, now the goal is, so Jesus put them in the boat, and the goal is for them to get to the other side. So everything that they did from that point forward moves towards that goal. So you have to ask yourself, is what we're doing right now, even though we're doing it together, is that accomplishing the goal? Is it moving us in that direction? Because if it's not, you're smart people. Stop doing that. Well, Pastor, we're trying really, really hard, but if it's not moving in the right direction, it's probably not helping. You're just getting tired. You exhaust your strength, you exhaust your resources, you exhaust your heart, and then people want to give up. Where is this going? See, Jesus said, here's the instruction. Here's what I want you to do. So maybe a good question is, what does Jesus want us to do? Where does he want our family to go? How does he want our family defined? If everything you're doing is moving in that direction, you're going to make progress. But if you're just like going through the motions, just working at it really hard, and we're doing it together. Now understand, remember that this is 3 o'clock in the morning, it's dark, there's clouds overhead, the wind is against them. And so it's chaos. And here's my observation. I think sometimes we row together when we're in crisis. But when the crisis is over, we don't row together in the day-to-day. And we go right back. So here's the deal. When the winds are against you, it's trying to push you back to where you were. Nobody wants to go backwards, do they? Nobody wants to go down. So we have to row. And the third and final lesson for those of us that are straining at the oars. Rowing hard together with Jesus in the boat will get you to the other side. So here's the thing. Here's how this ends up. And I'm going to kind of wind this on down right now. Whatever you're doing, whatever your plans are, the purpose, this kind of stuff, have you invited Jesus into that? If you're struggling with your finances, you're rowing hard at your financial structure, did you ask Jesus to come inside of that? If your family's troubles and this kind of stuff is going on, you got kids that are just kind of out there, stuff is going on, have you invited Jesus into that? Because if Jesus isn't in the boat, you really don't even know where you're going, right? You still with me? Now, I think what happens sometimes, we're gonna kind of finish this up, is we have a hard time figuring out what we're doing and where we're going. Because all the stuff going on, when things start to go wrong or things don't make progress, don't we get a little bit nervous? Don't we get scared? Anybody watch your finances kind of dwindling or something going on, or there's a job threat or whatever, you get a little nervous, right? Now see, when fear takes over, we get stuck in the middle. When fear takes over, we get stuck in the middle. And when we get stuck in the middle, even though we're working at it really, really hard, fear sometimes can make all of our decisions for us. Don't make your decisions out of fear. What does God want for me and my family? What does God want for my life? Now there's a weird part of the story in Mark chapter 6. What it said was that they didn't understand about the bread. Now they're in the middle of this lake. The winds are blowing. Things are crazy. They're rolling like crazy. Jesus is walking on the water, and he kind of saves them from this. And then it says, because they didn't understand about the bread. Now I read that and it's like, what? Maybe I'm thick, but I'm rowing like crazy. The ship's going down. I'm the king of the world. You know the story. That's sad, huh? That's just sad. And it says, because they didn't understand about the bread. Does that throw you off? What? Bread? What bread? Well, right before Jesus sent those guys to the other side, all these people were gathered up on this hillside where Jesus was teaching, and they got hungry. So Jesus said, so what do we have for them to eat? And they said, well, we got a boy here that's got these 5 loaves of bread and these 2 fish. And so Jesus took these 5 loaves of bread, and he was able to feed 5,000 people. So what they didn't understand about the bread was, in the midst of what you're struggling to get through, in the midst of what you're trying really hard at, sometimes what we do is we depend on human effort and we forget the God factor. God is in the house. God is in the middle of your situation. And what happens is sometimes we forget to invite him in. We forget that he's come along. And when we blow right by those, we will misinterpret what he's doing. Oh, it's a ghost. It's not a ghost. See, and we overreact to situations. We overreact to stuff that we assume is, I do this. Are there any overreactors in the house? Come on, I need some friends. This could be a great altar call because we got like 100 liars. It's crazy. Oh, not me. People say, I don't overreact. What? Yeah, you were the guy behind me at the stoplight honking because the light was about to turn red. No overreaction there. I had this actually happen one time. I was on my way to church and running late. And somebody was busy at the stoplight while it turned red. And so finally when it turned green again, I did you guys know the encouragement? So you race around him, you just look at him and go. Anybody do that? Come on, help me out. Yeah, you know. Yeah, I know Crash does it. So I pulled in the church parking lot, pulled in right behind me. I really wanted to change shirts right then, but you know. They didn't understand the bread. They didn't understand the God factor is the game changer. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do on your own, but just think of the stuff you can do when he's in the boat. He can take the not enough and make it more than enough. He can take the we're going down to we're going over. He can take the I can't see anything to I can see everything. He can take the this is hopeless to this is hopeful. That's the God we're talking about. So here's what I'm saying. Human effort is great, but human effort married together with God in the house and God, the God factor, I'm telling you, all things are possible for those of us that believe. So where does this end up? Put your heart into it, man. This relationship with God, put your heart into it. Don't just try it. Give yourself to it. Give him all the beans. And watch what God can do. I think God will surprise you. Anybody ever been surprised by God? Yeah. Now that doesn't mean that God's going to do it all for you. You got to row. Just turn to somebody and tell them, you better start rowing. I'm not doing this by myself, sucker. You get on it. But when we work together and we invite Jesus into the boat, we get to the other side. I didn't learn to swim until the summer after the 6th grade. All of my friends knew how to swim, but not Dave. And so I took the ridicule and people making fun of me and all the encouraging names that they gave me. You guys know the drill? And they would jump off the diving board and swim underwater. I could swim underwater for a really long time. And they say, hey, and they would, come on, just, and they say, hey, don't stay in the shallow end, come down to the deep end. Okay. They go, you having fun, Dave? And I said, are you chicken? Yeah. I was afraid I would go down. I was afraid of what would happen if I let go. Are you interested to know why? Because in the 3rd grade, I almost drowned. I did go underwater for a really long time. And we had a 16-year-old girl that was babysitting us at the time. And she jumped into the pool and rescued me. And I'm alive today because of a 16-year-old girl. That's pretty hard to find these days. My brother kind of made fun of me later and said that she gave me mouth to mouth and I couldn't remember it. That's sad, huh? Just sad. But because of my past, I was terrified of my present. I was afraid to let go. I was afraid to move forward. I was straining at the oars, but because I was kind of connected to the shore, I wasn't getting very far. It wasn't until I let go of that fear, and it was an older teenager, and I went to him and I said, hey, can you teach me to swim? He said, I'd love to. I'm not what you would call a world-class swimmer, but I don't drink near as much water as I used to. So here's the deal. You can do it by yourself as long as you want. But are you getting anywhere? I wonder what would happen if we rode together. I wonder what would happen to your family if all of a sudden we all started rowing in the same direction. I wonder what would happen to your spiritual life if you invited Jesus into that situation and let him just kind of be the master of the direction. Okay? You think that would make a difference? Maybe so. Could I get you to bow your heads and close your eyes for a moment, please? I've been feeling it strongly for the last couple of days, but I think that there's some families that are struggling to stay together. And you know what it is to be straining at the oars. And you're here and you're not saying anything out loud, but inside you're saying, man, I sure hope this works. I'm scared. You're afraid to put all your weight on that because you're afraid it might break. I think there might be some people here today that personally or spiritually, you're just afraid it's just going to crumble. You're not sure what's going to happen. I wonder if there's anybody here today that you're straining really hard and you don't feel like you're getting anywhere. Could I get you to just raise your hand real quick, put it right back down and say, yeah, Pastor, that's me. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody afraid of what might happen? Show me a hand. Just real fast. I just want to pray for you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Could y'all stand this morning, please? If you rode just by yourself, you're smart. You'll go in circles. And it's funny, people say, you know, I'm tired of doing this by myself. I quit. So your goal is to go in circles? That doesn't sound good. Let's do this together. Let's work this out together. And then the God factor, that's just the most amazing thing. I am is in the house. I am wants to get into the boat. And he wants to get you to the other side. This story ends in Mark chapter 6 in such an incredible way, and I just love sharing this. And it said, and the other side, they anchored. Wow, immovable, solid, not going anywhere. They anchored. And I think that's what we need today. We need to be able to have something just anchor our soul into place where we can't be blown around, where we're not struggling to stay afloat. So this morning, here's the deal. If you've been straining hard and you feel like it's not working out, you feel like you're not getting anywhere, feel like you're going in circles, time to give him all the beans. And then watch what he gives you back. See, because if you're not strong enough, his strength is made perfect in our weakness. If we're not wise enough, he confounds the wisdom of this world with his wisdom. He gives you back way more than enough. Way more. I think there's people here today that you're struggling to find some answers. And I'm going to be honest with you. I may not know the answers that you're looking for, but if we row together and we put Jesus inside of this, I'm pretty sure you're going to find him. Anybody agree with me? What a cool idea. Okay, so we're going to pray right now. Okay? Got some prayer partners up here. Now the deal is you might just simply need just somebody to pray with you. Hey man, life is just sucking me dry. I need some help here. But we're going to do this together. And we're going to watch God's power change everything. You ready? Let's pray.